Welcome to Retro Groove. Enjoy your voyage.
Howdy and welcome to Retro Groove. I'm Adam C.
And I'm Liam D.
And this is a podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time, the albums and artists that have shaped and reshaped the sonic landscape, as well as covering new music from those artists. And that last bit there, new music from these established artists, is what we're going to be digging into today. It's our first episode of 2022. And we are going to look forward to the future, in contrast to the last episode where we really dug into the past. We're going to look forward, and I think it's important to do that because we've had a rough couple of years. And so looking forward with some positivity, I think will help a little bit with our morale here. And, just get excited about some new music that's coming out. But before we get there, Liam, what's up, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. Holidays are behind us, for better or for worse, and it was really fun to do that. The best albums retrospective. That was really cool, and now I'm kind of excited to see what this year holds. It's
for sure
weird all over again. I don't know how things are with you, but like all of a sudden work stuff is getting canceled again, and tours are up in the air, and schedules, and everybody's kind of situation. Like they delayed my return to work, quote unquote, plans indefinitely. We're supposed to find out more in a week or two, but it's still weird, man. So I like, just when you think that we're getting into a rhythm again, I know
that seems to have been that's been the pattern. Yeah, we haven't been on any kind of return to work plan since before Delta hit. And then once Delta hit, they were like, okay, never mind. And it never came back. So, the last I heard is they're anticipating, at least the rest of this year still being 100% remote. But, for the most part, it's good, Yeah.
Not so bad to be inside sometimes, as long as you can get outside.
Yeah, and nothing's really changed here in Texas other than, the number of cases has gone up, but they're not going to shut anything down here.
No.
I haven't really noticed any increase in, mask wearing or anything like that. So I'm like, oh God, I'm trying to be smart and avoid public gatherings, and I still wear my mask even though I'm like fully vaccinated and boosted. And I'm just like, yeah, I can't afford. I mean, even though, whatever, if I get it, it'd probably be a mild case, whatever. Right. But like, I still can't afford to be out of commission for a few days with flu-like symptoms. It's like, no, I got too much to do.
But you guys, speaking of public gatherings, like, it looks like everything is full steam ahead with South by Southwest, which is in less than 2 months.
That we'll see what happens. South by is interesting because it's not just one venue, of course.
It's all over it, yeah.
So there might just be a modified version of that. So we'll see what happens. 2 months is, it seems like it's right around the corner, but this variant seems to like hit hard and quick and then leave just as quickly as it came, if other parts of the world are any indication. So hopefully we'll be well into a decline by then. I was bummed that the Spoon New Year's Eve show got canceled. That would have been really cool. And Sweet Spirit as well. I've never seen Sweet Spirit. That would have been awesome. But yeah, I mean, it probably was the right call, or definitely was the right call, but it's still a bummer.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because they it seems like they're moving forward with the Luck reunion stuff, which is like the thing that Willie Nelson does at his like hill country spot each year. And if you're talking about a national treasure that we really need to protect, it's probably
God.
Willie
How
Nelson.
How old is he now? My goodness.
Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan. Somebody put those guys in a bubble, and so I'm like, do we need?
No kidding.
Do we need to do that thing? I don't know. But yeah, that's it. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I was convinced that Betty White was going to make it to 100. So
so
all
was People
bets,
magazine.
all bets are off at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. Well, so there's been obviously, a lot of news surrounding, we've got this new variant that's causing a ruckus again. We've got tour announcements still, all over my feed. I see like a new tour being announced. So, what do you think
for 2022?
In terms of like the near, like the next 2 or 3 months here, like what are you hoping to see happen?
Well, I think what you're going to see, I think a lot of things are going to be full steam ahead on the release schedule. I think a lot of artists are hoping to get their music out in the next couple of months. And it's part of the reason why I think it's fun to do this kind of topic today. Because I think this year over maybe some other years, in 2021, artists had taken the year prior to that to kind of get comfortable and figure out and write and cocoon a little bit. And so in 2021, artists were able to get together. People figured out ways to do things safely or to write and record independently and share files and stuff. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's already kind of seeping out or getting announced, and I think that it's the tip of the iceberg. I think we're going to hear from a lot of other artists that maybe we haven't heard from in a little while. And I think also you have basically every major artist that has wanted to tour for the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, usually that stuff is spaced out. So Coldplay hits the road 1 year and then the Stones are out, a couple months later or something. And now it's just every artist that couldn't tour for the past 2 years is going to want to go out there.
It's nuts. I'm seeing so many tour announcements right now.
Yeah.
And some of them are things that were rescheduled from like last year and, late 2020.
Yeah.
Because all of that stuff got canceled.
Yeah, so you got all those new announcements plus all the rescheduled stuff, to your point. There's going to be a lot of tour congestion. And, we'll see if the economy can handle it. I mean, I am assuming that the hunger is there to go out and see shows. There's definitely shows getting announced that I want to see. Do you have any holdover tickets from pre-pandemic for stuff that got rescheduled?
I was even going to mention they got refunded, so no. Okay. But I am still salty about missing out on the Black Keys and Gary Clark Jr. That's the one. Yeah, me and my buddy Max. Who's like one of my main concert going partners. We were going to go see, we had tickets, they were expensive tickets too. Because I don't like large venue shows typically.
Yeah.
I like a more intimate setting. I like going to a club show or, small theater. But obviously this is Black Keys. They're at a big amphitheater. And so, we sprung for closer seats, and it was, I think it was like $150 a ticket. So not astronomical, but way more than I've ever paid for a concert ticket. Probably 3 times as much as I've ever paid for a concert ticket. So, on the one hand, it was nice to get that $150 back, but damn, I was pretty bummed. I was ready to go wearing 3 masks and just deal with it. You know what I mean? And this was 2020 when we didn't have a vaccine yet.
Yeah. So the Black Keys are an interesting one. You know, we haven't heard anything from them, not to jump too far, but just as like a teaser for our B-side, you know, like they're a band that I would be shocked if we don't get tour dates, if not some new music from them this year, just because like obviously we got Delta Cream last year, but it was a covers album. You know, it was carefully crafted and made their own, but it was a covers album. And they are one of the bands, and again, this is a little more behind the scenes, but it's public knowledge. A couple huge bands made massive shifts in management over the course of the pandemic, and they left their manager, whom they'd been with for forever, as did the Strokes and Red Hot Chili Peppers. A bunch of bands did this. Shifted management, and you think that when a band takes a drastic step like shifting to a new manager from someone that has been tried and tested for decades at that point, it means that they're looking to something. There's a direction. There's something. There's a goal to it.
You don't do that arbitrarily.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, unless there's like really some dirt behind the scenes, which who knows, but like I'm assuming that this just means that they have a vision for where they want to head to next, and if that's the case, I'd be shocked if we don't hear something from them soonish. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot to look forward to this year.
Definitely.
I do want to touch on a couple things going back to our conversation from the last episode where we did albums of the year.
Yeah.
Because it kind of impacted what I bought and listened to this past week or two.
Oh, yeah?
So while I was doing a little bit of like the recap of albums that came out this year and kind of just making sure that I had not forgotten anything as I was kind of picking my choice for the album of the year. An album that kept coming up on my radar that I had missed out on entirely was this band Turnstile. They put out an album. It's their fourth full-length album. They're like a hardcore band, but it's like funk and synth driven. These guys were not on my radar. I listened to them and I'm like, I think Adam would really dig this. Like, you should definitely check this thing out. But they kept showing up on everybody's like top 20, top 25 of the year in like the 4 or 5 spot on like a bunch of these lists. And so I'm like, who is this hardcore
past year?
band? Yeah. And I'm like, how is this hardcore band showing up on all of these lists?
I had never heard of them, and I haven't listened to it yet, but
you're gonna dig it. I think you're gonna dig it
on my waiting list. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think you're gonna dig it. And so listening to that, I'm guessing you've had this happen before, where like you
go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, a little bit. Where you like get a taste in your mouth and then, or in your ears, I guess, and you're like, you know what this reminds me of? And then so I went and I listened to Glassjaw, and then because I was listening to Glassjaw, I was like, oh, I want to listen to some like old emo stuff, and so I listened to Mineral. And then
I'm not familiar with Mineral.
You had been waxing, you picked Loveless, and you'd talked about My Bloody Valentine so many times, and I'm like, you know what, I've never given this album a chance. I don't know this band very well, and so I started listening to that, and it's awesome.
It's crazy.
I get like a Sigur Rós kind of thing, in the sense of like there is this bigness to the sound, and the vocals, obviously it's a different vocal style, but are the vocals supposed to be part of the scenery and not so pronounced? Is that like a thing with their music? Or because maybe it was the mix I was listening to, but the vocals were very like pulled back, and it was all sort of on the level together, and the music was kind of coming in and out, and it was really cool. And I hadn't really heard much like it before, but it had that kind of bigness that Sigur Rós will sometimes give me. And I think part of that's because I don't know what that band is saying. And so I was like driving and listening to the My Bloody Valentine album, so I couldn't look at the lyrics or whatever. And so I was more just letting the sounds wash over me instead.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
having that just visceral
Yep. That's what
impact.
it is. You got
Yeah.
it.
It was really cool. It was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
So I'm digging that for sure. And because of the Turnstile thing, I kind of went back to one of my favorite like post-hardcore bands from back in the day, who I think have been like on a great trajectory for the past like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years, which is Thrice. So I was a massive Thrice fan when Artist in the Ambulance came out, which is probably like 2003. And then like fell off a bit. He actually like kind of ended the band for a minute, and he was like a deacon and worked for like a ministry and went off he did like worship music and stuff. But then they came back in 2012, 2013. And then I missed the last 2 albums. Just hadn't spent any time with them, hadn't picked them up. And so I grabbed those as I was like going down this like post-hardcore sort of rabbit hole. And they're great. They're great.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to mention is an album that I haven't spent much time with, and I feel bad that I never really gave it a shake, but also I didn't see it on a bunch of lists, and maybe I wasn't looking at the right lists. But that was Casey Musgrave's album, Starcrossed, that came out this year, which I heard like 3 or 4 songs from it, and I thought that they were gorgeous, and I was like, I need to spend time with this album, and admittedly never did. And I don't. Why wasn't there the buzz on this? Maybe there was, and I just wasn't reading the right posts or blogs or whatever.
There was some buzz when it came out, but I listened to it a couple of times, and I felt like I was gonna really connect with it. But once I listened to it, I don't want to say I was disappointed necessarily, but it didn't grab me the way that I thought it was going to. And there's nothing that I could really even point to say that it missed a mark anywhere. It's a great album, but for me it was just a little bit forgettable, I guess. Like nothing really stood out and begged for my attention or got like into my soul, you know what I mean? Like you want an amazing album to do. So it's a great album, but you know, it doesn't really surprise me that it didn't seem to be on any best album of the year lists. It's there's nothing wrong with it. It's definitely worth the listen. It's worth a purchase as well, but it's not like amazing to me.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that like Golden Hour was such a moment, and then for this one to not have that, like carry that momentum to the extent that I thought it would. And as terrible as this is going to sound, like this is her divorce album, right?
Yeah.
And usually a lot of those, I mean, there's a lot of raw emotions there. I think of Ben Gibbard after the Zooey Deschanel breakup, where they went from Codes and Keys, which is probably for me the weakest Death Cab album of their catalog, to a gutting solo album that he put out, and then Kintsugi, which was like this amazing return to form for Death Cab. And I'm like, man, like the guy had to bleed and have his life turned upside down to have this music come out of him, and that's a terrible thing. But at the same time, like, it's gorgeous art. Like, it's fantastic. So I'm interested to see what's next. But I feel like I didn't give the Casey album a fair shake this year, and so I feel I bought it. I want to spend some time with it. I also I went to buy the My Bloody Valentine Loveless CD. Like it was there. I had the Casey album and the Thrice album in my hand. And then I pulled the My Bloody Valentine CD off the shelf, and it was $30. And I'm like, it's a 2 CD set, so I get that, but I've gotten used to, and I know that back in the day we would pay like $18, $19 for a CD. I've gotten used to like that $12 mark. Yeah. You know, like it's not really a buyer's or a seller's market rather for CDs these days. And so when I pulled that off the shelf, I was like, that's a little steep for something that I'm not.
I'm not
like,
aware. Why would it be
fully in
2
on it yet.
CDs? Is it some kind of like special edition that I'm not aware of? That's crazy.
I've got to look it up now and see what I was looking at. But yeah, it had like the domino thing on it.
I mean, granted, I paid like probably $65 or $70 for an imported, analog master version of the most recent pressing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, equivalent, maybe $30 isn't too crazy, but that would mean it was in short supply or something.
Maybe it was an import.
Could have been an import.
It's the only thing I can think of is it's an import.
I'm just not aware of a double CD version of it.
It was a double disc version that contains a second previously unreleased version of the album, which has been mastered from the original analog tapes.
Oh, weird. Yeah,
very weird.
No idea that existed. So that makes a little bit more sense. Still a heavy price tag for a CD.
Yeah.
Even
for
something
a CD,
like that.
Yeah.
Unless it's something,
so I
older
passed
and
on
more
that one.
rare. But
Right.
man, the last time I saw a CD priced at $30, it was like an old Jawbreaker album that was like hard to find. Or something like Traveling Wilburys, where it's like there's just not a whole lot of it around. And that was 20 years ago. But yeah, it's for me, it's an album experience type of thing. So I strongly prefer it on vinyl, but
Sure.
it's not a bad album to listen to in the car. You absolutely can. But for me, it's one of those experiences where I want to be like, in a dark room with my eyes closed and go through the whole thing front to back.
I dig that.
But yeah, I'm so happy that you had that experience with it, that you kind of, got it.
There were so many cassette tapes at this store too. It's been a little while since I went to one that's a little further from me, and there were so many new cassettes. It was like every new release that was like buzzy from the past 5 or 6 months had a cassette counterpart, and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around it.
Me either, dude. Like,
it's so weird.
Yeah, obviously I've got some strong nostalgic feelings about the cassette tape as a format.
Tapes are cool. Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just due to the fact that it was really I just hit my microphone. It was really the first accessible home format where you could record your own music, make your own mixtape, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really where the big appeal was with cassette tapes. Certainly not the fidelity.
No.
Because
or the convenience.
Right. So because even with vinyl, you can still see where the gap is in the grooves and skip a song if you want to, or go to a specific song if you want to fairly
you
easily.
You got to scan a cassette tape.
You cannot do that with a cassette tape. Although I did at one point have a boombox that detected where the gap was in between songs.
What?
At one point. And it only worked on albums that actually had a strong gap in between songs. It would detect when there was no like sound coming through, and then stop fast forwarding so you could like skip a song and it would play it with 98% accuracy at the beginning of the next song. So I do remember that being a thing, but you're right. It is an inconvenient format and not a very high fidelity format. So that baffles me as well. Who is buying new albums on cassette in 2022? That makes no sense to me. And if that's your thing, more power to you. Have fun with your cassette tapes. I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
I did have a thing, and this I want to say this in the least creepy sounding way as possible. I'm just putting that out there. But like, so I bought my stuff, I walked out, and I went down the block to like a new retro game store that had been opening up, and I was like, check them both out. And as I left, I crossed the street and was like looking around, and there were these like 3 young women in like pea coats or whatever, like mid-20s probably, whatever, and they looked like they were probably going out to have lunch or maybe some cocktails before dinner or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I wonder, there's not like a bar here. All the bars are like in the direction that I'm going. And I kind of walked away, and I like glanced back because I'm like, where are they going? They're not. And I watched, and they walked into the record store. Oh. And I'm like, I wonder, like my curiosity got the best of me. And then I was like, no, I can't go back in there just to see what these women are actually buying at this record store. But I'm so used to like being surrounded by like dudes that look like me, or like 50 to 60-year-old people digging for Beatles imports and stuff. And like to see, like when I first walked in there were like 3 younger kids in there. And then, like I said, when I was leaving, there were these 3 like 20-something-year-old women going in. Like, it's very cool to see that sort of foot traffic in a record store.
For sure.
That's kind of exciting.
My wallet doesn't like it because
no.
it's not like it was 10 plus years ago. You know, albums that you used to be able to get for $3 in the bargain bin, now they're $20.
Yeah, they got their value up.
Yep. Yeah. But and I think it's great. There's no gatekeeping here. I think I mentioned it on a recent episode where I was digging through the, classic rock section somewhere. I think it was actually at one of my locals, and there was a kid probably, not that much younger than my daughter. This kid must have been 8, 9 years old, looking at, The Who and ZZ Top. Like, they were looking at real, like, classic rock, like, quality stuff. And I was like, okay, go for it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I love it. I wish my daughter would
let's
get into that. I can't get my daughter into that kind of stuff. It's good to see. You know what I mean? It means that the appreciation is gonna perpetuate. Otherwise, stuff just dies. But anyway, I myself
what have you been listening to?
Have been listening to not a whole lot, not as much as I would like. Unfortunately, I've been incredibly busy. But I went on another Kimbra kick. Kimbra being the New Zealander. Is that what they call themselves? Mm-hmm. She's a Kiwi.
I think so. New Zealand I don't
pop
know.
artist, and I think she's most widely known, unfortunately, for being featured on Gautier's song on Somebody That I Used to Know.
Yeah.
But her albums are incredible, and I went back and listened to her album Vows, and we had a little, back and forth, me and Dan in the Discord. And man, every time I go back and start listening to her albums, I listen to like all 3 all the way through. And then I made the mistake of looking at the prices
boy.
Yeah, I went on Discord and I was like, I wonder if I can grab a copy of Vows. Yeah, there were a couple for sale, both in the mid 200s, and got immediately disheartened. So I'm hoping that they get repressed at some point, and I'm not sure why that hasn't happened. There's any number of reasons why, but oh my God, like, I love her albums, but am I going to pay $235 plus? Mm-hmm. And then plus possibly, shipping from the other side of the world? Damn.
Yeah.
So that was, I
crazy.
always love listening to Kimbra. It's always really, really engaging for me. And then I was kind of scrolling through my Instagram feed, and an ad went by, and it actually caught my attention. And it was this artist, Kendra Morris, and I hadn't really heard of her before. And I think it popped up in my feed because she's on Karma Chief, which is it's a subsidiary of Coal Mine Records. And I follow a lot of their bands. One of their big claims to fame is putting out the couple of singles for the Black Pumas before they went with I think ATO.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I got really into Ghost Funk Orchestra, which is another big coal mine Karma Chief artist. So I think that's why she was in my feed. But she is an R&B soul artist from New York City. And she's been putting out records for a while, actually. For about 10 years now, she's been putting out music. And funnily enough, when I was looking through, the top songs on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever, she's featured on songs by Czarface and MF Doom. And I think there's a collaboration there with Ghostface Killah, who I'll talk about in a second, and we'll talk about on the B-side as well. So she's got a new album coming out next month, which I'll mention. But that got me on a Ghostface Killah kick.
Nice.
And I went back and listened to Supreme Clientele, which I hadn't listened to in 5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay.
And I forgot how amazing that album is. And that was before I even knew that it looks like we're getting Supreme Clientele 2 this year.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, that album, if you haven't listened to it, or if you're, any level of Wu-Tang fan, please listen to Supreme Clientele. Oh my God, what an album.
Yeah. He's just got, there's no flow like his. Like he's such a unique and fantastic MC.
Absolutely. And one of my favorites to listen to when the kids are not in the car.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that's really about it for me.
Cool.
What do you want? Do you want to play? We have a game to play.
Yeah, let's try
and
it.
I feel like I want to get into that before we go into any news or the day in history. Have a little bit of fun. So in doing my research for some of the artists we're going to be talking about today, this idea popped into my head for a game. And I'm calling the game What's in a Name. So the idea is we've both picked 4 artists, and we're going to give the other person the birth name of said artist.
You're giving up the governments. That's right. Yeah.
And we have to guess who the artist is.
Okay.
A correct guess without any hints is 25 points. So there's a possible 100 points that you can earn.
Right.
If you don't know who it is, there's a first hint, which is the genre of the artist, but that knocks it down to only 20 points. Second hint is an artist that they're closely associated with.
Right.
Knocks it down to 15 points. And then a third hint is a name of one of their albums, because that probably should get you there, but that's only worth 10 points.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it'll become a regular feature. Who knows? But I thought it would be fun. Okay. So,
do you want to trade these back and forth, or do you want to give me your list and I give you mine? What do you think?
Yeah, let's go back and forth. That's always fun.
Okay.
That always seems to work well.
You want to kick it off?
Yeah, let's go. And we're just starting this off, so these might be too easy, but who knows? Okay. So the first name that I have for you is David Robert Jones.
David Robert Jones. Well, so Davy Jones was in the Monkees.
Correct.
Is that Davy Jones from the Monkees?
No, because the reason why they had to change their name is due to Davy Jones. So they had to pick a stage name because Davy Jones already was Davy Jones.
Man, okay.
So think around that era, though, same kind of time frame.
Yeah. Man, I feel like this is going to be an obvious one, too. I guess I don't know if Bowie is his real last name. I'm trying to think of other Daves or Davids.
Is that your guess?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bowie, I guess.
It is. It's David Bowie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I feel like I should know that one. Yeah, okay, cool.
No, that's good, Using
right around
context
that time.
clues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Who do I
And the
wanna
listeners
give you?
can't. I hit my mic again. The listeners can't see us, but we can see each other, so we know we're not cheating and just Googling this.
Yeah. Let's go with Peter Hernandez. Peter Hernandez.
Oh, why does that sound so familiar? I don't know.
So he's a current artist. I feel like that shouldn't take away from your points. He's like a recent artist. This isn't like a classic artist.
Kind of want to. I can't remember his name though. Is it the dude with the dark hair from Fall Out Boy? Pete Wentz?
No. That's Pete Wentz. No.
Okay. Well, that was a bum guess. Give me a genre.
That's so good. Genre. I mean, it's pop, but it's really like funk soul pop. Like you wouldn't call him an R&B singer, really. He's more of a funk.
Bruno
soul.
Mars.
Yeah, there you go.
I got it.
You got it.
Nice. That was a complete. Okay, so your hint really got me there. Wow. Okay. Sweet. So so I got 20 points. You got the 25. Yep. I got 20.
Yeah, I'm keeping tally.
Okay. All right, my next name for you here. Mm-hmm. Calvin Cordozer Brodus Jr.
I know this one.
Calvin Cordozer Brodus Jr.
It's a rapper.
I
think it's Method Man. Is it Method Man?
It is not Method Man.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to ask the genre because it's a rapper.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he's a rapper.
I guess we'll do. I guess if you need to ask another lifeline or whatever, we'll just dock 5 points instead of taking you down to the 15.
Yeah. Well,
we're figuring this out as we go along.
Yeah. Do we want to, like, if I make another guess, it's 5 points off regardless?
Sure.
I think. Yeah.
Or do you want me to give you one of the other hints other than the genre? Because you got the genre.
Yeah. I kind of want to just say Busta Rhymes, but like, I feel like it's in that pantheon. Is it Busta Rhymes?
It's not Busta Rhymes.
All right. Give me. All right, so I'm down to 15 points. Give me the name of an album, or give me an album, or an artist they're closely associated with. That's the next one, right? Yeah.
Which
one do you want to do?
Let me give you an album, but I can't use like the obvious one.
Oh, wait, is it Snoop Dogg?
Yes, it is Snoop Dogg.
Okay,
Awesome.
I was like, Calvin. I know he's a rapper. It's Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how you want to work the point. Well, that was, let's say 15.
I did two guesses and then I hit it. So maybe do 15?
Yeah,
Okay.
Let's dock 5 points for each guess.
Each erroneous guess, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Whether or not you get a hint. So you can take the hint if you want.
Right.
Okay, sweet. All right.
My next one. Hold on, let me delete my other one here.
I can't believe I guessed Bruno Mars.
That's good.
I think it's because you've been talking about Soul Sonic so much recently.
Yeah.
That's where my mind went.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, I was just like digging around with pop stuff too, because I was like, what's a fun current pop artist? And I've been listening to a lot of Dua Lipa, and I'm like, what's Dua Lipa's real name? Her real name's Dua Lipa. It's crazy.
Really?
Like, I don't know what. I didn't like do any deeper digging, but I was like, what? Really?
I would not have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah. Right. Frank Wright the Third.
Frank Wright. Oh, I feel like I should know this, and that sounds familiar. Frank Wright.
Frank Wright the Third.
I'm trying to think of like Frankie.
No, you won't get it there.
No, I'm not.
It's
Nothing's
just a full-on stage name.
Dang it. Okay. I guess give me a
Go
genre. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got. Well, should I just throw a
it's
guess
too
out
genre.
there? Yeah, give me a genre.
Yeah, I'll give you genre. It's you'd call it pop punk at this point. When it first came out, pop punk wasn't really a thing. It was kind of happening, and so like they would consider themselves punk. We look at it and say it's pop punk, but so
Okay,
punk band or pop punk.
So I'm thinking if the way that you phrased that genre gave a lot more away than just giving me a genre. So
Sure,
I'm thinking a pop punk band from the 90s. So I'm trying to think of pop punk artists with
Right.
a name as what would be an obvious stage name. And the only thing coming
Right.
to my mind is Trey Cool from Green Day.
You got it.
I got
Pretty
it.
Cool.
All right.
That's it.
See,
Nice one.
the problem is your hints are too good.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's a game. It's fun.
Sweet. Okay. So that's 20 points, I guess?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we're tied up actually right now.
Oh, sweet. Okay. All right, ready? Andre Romel Young.
All right. So Andre 3000 is the obvious choice, but there are a few other Dre's. I don't know Dr. Dre's name.
Andre Romel Young.
I'm going to go with Andre 3000.
It is not Andre 3000.
Okay.
So you can probably just automatically pick the
Dr.
other
Dre.
Dre. Yes.
Yeah, it's Dr. Dre. It
I
was
thought
one
it-
Dre or the other.
Yeah. I thought it'd be obvious because I just did Snoop on the last one, but we had a gap
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Sweet.
All right. Let's see where I'm
All right.
going to go because I feel like I don't want to go in one genre. I kind of want to bounce around a little bit. I guess that's also giving you a hint. How
I'm
about
not paying close enough attention for that to be a good hint.
how about Alicia Moore?
Alicia Keys?
Alicia Moore. No, it's not Alicia Keys.
Oh, okay.
Alicia Moore.
I guess
It's
give me the
spelled
genre then.
Alecia.
ECIA.
She's a pop singer.
Pop singer. Okay, pop singers with that weird spelling makes me just think that it's a relatively young artist, and I'm trying to think of young pop artists.
Well, and she's like, yeah, so the Alicia isn't in the name or anything like that. It's just like a
Right.
straight up stage name. Alicia Moore.
I'm trying to think of recent, like, I don't know, Doja Cat. Just stab in the dark.
Not Doja Cat.
Okay.
All right.
Any
So,
artists that they might be associated with?
yeah. So I feel like this will give it away a little bit, but again, it's a game, so whatever. This is fun.
Yeah, and the points are docked.
So I'm gonna say associated artists would be Lil Kim, Christina Aguilera, Maya. Yeah, they all kind of had. There was like a song that happened that they were all doing stuff together on.
Oh, there were so many of those, though.
Yeah, but it was Christina Aguilera, Maya, Lil Kim, and Alicia Moore were on this song for a very popular movie that I watched a couple times and I didn't really get into. I had a girlfriend for a hot second in high school who was obsessed with this movie, Baz Luhrmann, I think, movie, and she was like so into this. And I remember we saw it in the theaters, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, I'm just not understanding what the appeal is of this movie, but people.
I have
loved
Is it Eve?
No, that's a good guess.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. So I have
so then
name of an album?
Name of an album. I'm trying to think of what's going to give you the hint on this, because like there's Misunderstood and Can't Take Me Home.
Missy Elliott?
No. See,
No.
that's why I feel like I'm misleading you on that. So hold on. So let me look at the other albums here to see if there's something. Or maybe I'll just give you a song. I don't know.
Dang.
Yeah.
I'm only going to get like 5 points if I even get it.
Let's see here. Hold on. Where are your... Well, I mean, a hint also is that she's a very hard artist to Google because it's one word and it's a very common word. But she's been around for like 20 years now. Discography.
Man, I'm going to kick myself.
Yeah, see, the problem is like all of her albums, I don't think that any of them were like hit songs. So like her first hit was There You Go, but then there's like Get This Party Started, Just Like a Pill.
Oh my God, I can hear There You Go in my head.
You in Your Hand.
But I don't know the artist.
So What? She had so she had So What? Who Knew? You in Your Hand. And the song that I was talking about before was Lady Marmalade from Moulin Rouge.
Oh.
Yeah. Gitchy, ya, ya, da, da.
Dang it.
So that was my Christina Aguilera. Actually, I think Missy Elliott was actually on that song too. And Lil' Kim. Yeah, Missy Elliott was on that song. And
dude,
and
I have
this
no
artist,
idea, and I'm gonna.
her
kick
name is
myself.
a color.
Pink.
Her name, yeah, Pink. There you go.
What the heck? Oh, Misunderstood. That's right.
Misunderstood. Yeah,
I knew.
Can't Buy
I'm
Me Love.
currently
Yeah.
kicking myself in the ass.
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
God.
I feel like that'll be a common thing. I also feel like people who are listening to this podcast will spend a lot of the time with this game screaming out into their kitchen or car.
Yeah,
or
exactly. Dang. All right. So do I
So
even
we'll do
get the 5 points on that? All right.
Yeah, we'll do 5 points.
5 points. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang, Pink. I'm so sorry, Pink, if you're listening. She's not listening, but
She's
damn.
not listening. That's
Man.
cool. All right, give me your last one.
And I'm like a fan of hers too. Like
she's
I
amazing.
like her. Dang.
Alicia? Yeah, who knew?
I think it's. I see. I don't know. I didn't see Moulin Rouge, and I barely remember. I know what you're talking about, and I remember seeing the music video a couple times on MTV or whatever. But dang. Okay.
I mean, the music video is very memorable for if you were any sort of teenage boy around that time. That was a music video.
I don't remember Pink being in that.
Yeah.
I remember Christina. I don't remember Lil' Kim or Pink being a part of that. No.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Okay, last one. Okay, this is a mouthful. Gordon Matthew Thomas Sumner.
That is Sting.
Yes!
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, Gordon Sumner's
Of course
the
you
man.
would knock the last one out of the park when I struggled.
Yeah. Gordon is Sting. Yeah. I mean,
So
and
you
that's
just-
why his name is Sting, because But I told you, my mom's obsessed with him. I know everything about Sting and his tantric moves and his brand new day and all of that stuff.
All right, cool. Well, I'm glad that you got a slam dunk. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun. Really cool.
And then I've got one more for you.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I gave up
Let's
already from the last one.
see. How about William Broad? William Broad. William. There's a lot of nicknames for William.
Yeah.
As I was looking this up, by the way, I found out that Will Smith's first name isn't William. It's Willard, like the weird movie. Yeah. Who knew? Willard Smith. Yeah. Because I was like, is Will Smith could be a stage name. Who knows? No, it's Willard. His name's Willard.
Will Smith's first name is Willard.
Willard. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Big Willie style. Big Willard style.
Big Willard style.
Man, if I had Photoshop skills, I'd take I'd do something. I think.
All right, William what? What was the last name?
William Broad.
Broad. Broad. That is not ringing any bells.
The movie with the rats.
Yeah.
Man, someone should do Big Willard style.
Big Willard style.
And Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover, yeah. That was a weird movie. I have no idea who
tough,
William
there's a
Broad
lot of different
is.
versions of it. There's William, Bill. Yeah. You want to do a genre?
Yeah, give me a genre.
Yeah. Okay. So, genre. Let's see what Wikipedia says his genre is. I would say it's like 80s.
They're good with the
80s glam rock is what I'm going to say off the top of my head. But
hold on, wait. You said 80s. Is it Billy Idol?
It's Billy Idol.
Yes,
it is. Yeah, there you go.
That's all I needed. Was it. Just give me a decade.
Yeah, 80s glam rock. Yeah, okay, dance punk. I guess that's a thing. It says, yeah.
All right, I'll take the 5-point dock on that.
Yeah,
because you gave me you threw me a bone. Yeah. All right, cool. So what's our final tally here?
You've got 65 points. I've got 85 points from my big Sting slammer at the end.
Sting slam dunk. Thank you, Sting.
Yeah, not the wrestler. Yeah.
Slam dunk. Good job.
All right, so let's hit a little news things here before we flip over to the B-side.
We're getting close to flipping it over.
So a couple things real quick. So I think we mentioned on another episode that Bob Dylan recently sold his catalog to UMG for a bunch of cash, and now it's come out that Bruce Springsteen did the same thing. A couple weeks ago he sold everything to Sony. Bruce has been with Sony for I think almost his entire career, if not his entire career, so it's not a huge surprise that that's the deal he would go with. It's also hasn't been released how much money the deal was for, but the rumor is about 500 million.
Jeez.
The interesting thing is, like, we've talked about it a little bit about, artists kind of taking things into their own hands when it comes to their retirement, controlling their legacy, etc. And it is very interesting to see artists reaping sort of the tax benefit of it, which is like, if they continue to collect revenue from their music as a yearly thing, right? Like they earn their royalties, they pay their normal tax rate, which if you're a successful artist like Bruce Springsteen is 40-50% tax, right?
It's a lot.
But if you sell your catalog, it's capital gains.
It's the one time.
And so you only pay like 20% tax or something like that. So you could right up front get a nice chunk of money that you're not going to see in your lifetime. Ostensibly. But it's also, and this spurs a bigger conversation than we should probably have right now, but it is that for anyone who's a collector, and obviously we all are, we are part of the Retrologic community of video games and toys, and we do the music stuff as well. And, but like, if you're thinking of what you're leaving to your children, what you're leaving as your legacy, it's I guess it's a pretty smart choice in many ways to say, I'm gonna let the music people, I trust Sony, you have to have that right relationship obviously, but Sony as an entity will now carry on the re-releases, the remastered, the archival, the legacy of my library in perpetuity. And I'm going to give my kids a bunch of dough. And it's like, it's not that weird from me looking at all of my GameCube games and being like, I mean, maybe I sell those at some point and just give my kid the cash, like, like why hold on to this stuff? Like, it's a different thing, but like Bruce Springsteen giving his kids the rights to control his music is like giving them a job. It's giving them some sort of career, or it's hiring someone. They have to hire someone to control it. So I respect it. It is
for sure.
It's very transactional. It commodifies music in a way that it has to be done, but it does feel weird. but I respect it. Like it's
Yeah,
a
you
normal
have
thing
to.
to do. And I think we're going to see a ton of these legacy artists that are going to be doing this. It's already started, and I think we're only going to see more. It's probably the smart way. The interesting thing is going to be like, Sony's bankrolling this up front. Like that's $500 million up front. Like they're going to have to recoup that over time. Streaming isn't going to cut it, So
no,
like,
we're going to see a bunch of vinyl releases.
Yeah, and like maybe you'll hear Bruce songs, or maybe he's got terms, I don't know, but maybe you hear Bruce songs in a Papa John's commercial, or like I don't know, man. It could be weird.
Could be.
We were talking about COVID. The Grammys have been postponed. There was a lot of rumblings leading up to that might happen. They've got they have a desire. It's in Los Angeles this year, and I know they have a desire to do something maybe even outdoors, which even in California in January isn't the best thing. So in maybe pushing it to spring or summer, you could pull that off better in LA. So we'll see where that goes. It's just, just another thing. Like we're talking about South by. There's rumors about Coachella. We'll see where that lands. We've talked about the Woodstock documentary on here before. Michael Lang, one of the founders and promoters of the original Woodstock and then its iterations over the years. He passed away today or yesterday. He was 77.
77.
Like there's a lot to be said for pulling off what they pulled off all those years ago, and Woodstock 94 was fairly successful, and 99 was a mess.
Oh God.
I think if you watch that documentary,
I still need to watch that.
it leaves you feeling pretty dirty, as it did those people, I'm sure. Like there's a lot of denial going on in that, like as people are living in a terrible squalor out there in the festival, and then the two guys who, one of them is Michael, are behind the scenes kind of saying, there's no problems, everything's fine, there's plenty of water, everybody's cool, don't worry about it. And it wasn't the case, so it's a bummer. But sad to lose somebody who was a visionary enough to put together a festival like that. And obviously Woodstock is an institution, and we'll see where it goes from there. The Beatles, who we did a fun episode about recently, so they apparently the full rooftop concert has never been fully released before, or at least like not the audio of it. I think obviously we some of the recordings are on the LPs, but like I don't think the entire concert has ever been released. And in IMAX, you'll be able to go watch it in IMAX.
That's pretty crazy,
in
actually.
its entirety. It's pretty cool. I mean, again, going to a movie theater right now is a little dicey, but I kind of want, after watching that whole documentary and diving back in and like re-educating myself on that era of the Beatles, going to see the whole concert in an IMAX experience could be really cool.
Yeah.
So that's the end of this month in January. And then you're not a big TikTok person, are you?
No, I do not have the TikToks.
You don't tick or talk.
No, I'm sure. See, so some of the TikTok trends and, the more viral stuff ends up trickling down into, the feeds that I'm currently in, like Instagram and stuff like that. But no plans to go down that rabbit hole right now.
So did Bo Burnham's album or comedy special / music special make its way to you at all?
I watched it. Radar? Yeah, I was.
You did? Okay. Mm-hmm. Because I know that it was a huge thing on TikTok, and it still bubbles up from time to time. My wife uses TikTok a ton, and we'll be on the couch, and I'll just hear random sounds coming from her phone, and I'm like, okay, I know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But because we watched Inside together, like I'm familiar with all the songs, and it's a cool project.
Right.
And some of the songs are really fun and
he's
deep.
He's actually pretty talented songwriter, even
So
though it's
talented.
he's talented.
It's
for
comedy, but it's not. Yeah. And so it's getting a proper vinyl release. The pre-orders are open now.
That's cool.
Something tells me that it's going to be, I don't know why I feel this way. Maybe it's because it was so trendy and buzzy, and because I've seen so many young people in my record store. But something tells me that this is going to be something that isn't going to get some kind of crazy release. He's not on a major label.
Right.
So I feel like this is something that comes and goes, and if you don't have it, and then
it's
you
going
go
to skyrocket
looking for it in a year or two,
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I've got that like itchy FOMO finger right now of like, I think I would listen to this. Like I like it enough where I think I'll listen to it. So there's a utility, but also like I don't want to miss out on having this on vinyl.
Yeah.
Something tells me by next week I'll probably have ordered it, but we'll see. I think that's it for me for news.
For news. All right. Well, we've got some quick music history to cover, and then we'll flip it over. So just this past week, obviously, we have the birth date of David Bowie, who was just featured in our new game, and
He was
featured in our top albums of 1971. So he was born January 8th, 1947, and we lost him on January 10th, 2016. So that was 6 years
close
ago
to his
now.
birthday.
Yeah. And he had just released an album too. It was only a few days.
Black Star? Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly when Black Star was released, but it was either on his birthday or right around it. And then, just a short handful of days later, got the news of his passing. So, and Foo Fighters just put out a cover of one of his Black Star album songs, didn't they?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it yet.
Spoon put one out too. Yeah, there's been a couple covers floating out there from some
Was it
project.
Foo Fighters or Spoon? Maybe maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I think there are a couple. There might be. I don't know of a Foo Fighters one. There's a couple things out there because I want to say that there's some.
No, you're right. It's Spoon. I was wrong. It's not Foo Fighters. It was Spoon.
It's another band that you love, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's some like Amazon David Bowie celebration thing happening, and I feel like the Spoon thing was part of that. So there may be other artists as well, but there's been a few things popping off from it.
Yeah, and it's a great album. He did it with a bunch of really talented jazz musicians, so it's pretty different for him, which is weirdly normal for him to do something left field and off the beaten path. But yeah, it's actually a great album, and obviously it got a lot of recognition because of his passing, but it is actually an excellent album in its own right. So definitely something to check out if you haven't.
The weird thing is that so it's so close together, the dates between his birth date and his the day of his death. I feel like there's a thing with Jerry Garcia where there's the days between.
Yeah, they do the days between thing. I don't think it's that close though.
I think it's like a week or two or something like this. There's some like segment of time where they do the days between, and I'm wondering like you could do a 48-hour celebration, like everybody like does the Aladdin Sane or like puts the Ziggy Stardust, whatever it is, like the lightning bolt on your face. Like have yourself a nice little Bowie celebration every year for 48 hours in January. It might be worth it. Like a good excuse to revisit his music and celebrate it every year. Yeah,
I think we have a local, our local not public access, our local public radio station does a David Bowie weekend. Pretty much, I think they've done it every year since his passing. By the way, Jerry Garcia was born August 1st, 1942, and died on August 9th, 1995.
Yeah, so it's about a week they do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always interesting when that happens that way.
Yeah.
And then some quick music history. January 15th, 1965, The Who released their first single, I Can't Explain, with Jimmy Page on guitar, actually. I didn't know that. That's news to me.
Didn't know that either.
And the Ivy League on backing vocals. It went on to
Cool.
reach number 8 on the UK charts. That was, this day when this actually goes live, in January 15th, 1965. January 15th, 1983, we talked about them in our last episode. Men at Work started a 4-week run at number 1 on the US singles charts with Down Under. It was the Australian group's second US number 1, also a number 1 hit in the UK as well. Amazing album. I love that. I'll pop that on pretty frequently, to be honest. January 16th, 1988, 24 years, speaking of the Beatles, after the Beatles first topped the chart, George Harrison went to number 1 on the US singles chart with Got My Mind Set on You, an old favorite of his that was originally recorded by James Ray in 1962. And doesn't that one have a pretty iconic music video?
It does, yeah. I mean, that's the one where the room comes to life, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, that stuck with me. I have that on vinyl. I love that album, but that's one of those things that I definitely. It's that and Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer.
Yeah, I was going to mention Peter Gabriel, just that weird music video memory.
Like, I'm like, oh my God, like it just, what music videos could be. I mean, Thriller's obviously up there too, of like things that I saw when I was a kid where I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Is this a movie? It's not a TV show. It's music.
Thriller is what really started the whole trend of making them more cinematic in scope.
But these are just jarring things that it's like the Tiki Room. I don't know if you were ever in the Tiki Room in Disney, but it's like it should be this happy, wonderful time with birds and flowers singing, and then the thunderstorm hits, and you're like, I don't know what's going on in here.
Kind of creepy, right?
I'm 7 years old and I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, it's
Get me out of here.
It's the acid trip on the boat scene in Willy Wonka. That's exactly what it is.
That's right.
So, this one's kind of funny. So, January 16th, 1996, Jamaican authorities opened fire on Jimmy Buffett's seaplane, mistaking it for a drug trafficking plane. U2 singer Bono was also on board. Neither singer was injured in the incident, and the incident inspired Jimmy Buffett to write a song called Jamaica Mistaka.
Fantastic. Like, also, what a disaster that could have done.
That could have been a horrible disaster.
Oh my gosh.
Oops, we just killed Jimmy Buffett and Bono. Holy moly.
Jamaica Mistaka.
I had to include that. I think literally the Jamaica Mistaka is the only reason I included this bit.
It's so good.
It's a good payoff.
Yeah.
And then January 17th, 1967 is the day that the Daily Mail ran the story about a local council survey finding 4,000 holes in the road in Lancashire, inspiring John Lennon's contribution to A Day in the Life. That was January 17th, 1967, that story ran. A few quick birthdays, and then we'll flip it over and go into our main course for the day. January 14th, 1967, Zakk Wylde has his own solo career, but was the guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne after Randy Rhoads' passing. Also, January 14th, in 1968, LL Cool J, we just saw him be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just at the end of this last year.
That's right.
And then the very next year, we have these 67 was Zakk Wylde, 68 was LL Cool J, and 69 on the same date, Dave Grohl.
Oh, man.
Nirvana, Foo Fighters. I mean, Dave Grohl is probably the biggest rock star in the world.
That's a heavy date for birthdays.
It is. Heavy hitters
one
there.
Day, every year had a pretty big one come out.
And then this one, unfortunately, being quite a bit more tragic, but another plane crash incident, January 16th, 1979, Aaliyah, singer and actress, killed in a plane crash in the Bahamas. That was 2001, over 20 years ago. We lost her. And
that's one of those like production things too, where it's just like they just overloaded that plane trying to cut corners and expedite or whatever. And it's just, you look back at it and you're like, how could you? I mean, she was top of her game at that point.
Yeah.
Like, she was exploding, and then just, sorry.
Yeah, she would have, I mean, she was already huge, but like her career would have gone even further. Yeah. So it's really tragic. I have such a weird, the character arc for her is unfortunate for me because like my initial impressions of Aaliyah had to do with being overwhelmingly annoyed by the baby cooing sample.
Oh my God. And should have, Are You That Somebody?
Are You That Somebody?
Tell me
yeah.
That somebody.
And is that, do
what
we
was
blame
that baby?
We blame
Timbaland?
Yeah, we blame Timbaland for that,
It
right?
had to be Timbaland. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for the longest time, like I associated Aaliyah with that feeling of being annoyed due to the baby cooing sample, and you know, unfortunately, took years before I was able to go back and see her for the artist that she was. But yeah, tragic loss for the music world. All right,
Are You
that
Somebody music video is also like a Lady Marmalade video too. Just
I don't remember that one. Was that a crazy music video?
No, it's more like I was teenage boy and she was gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean that's
like, oh my God.
I mean that was pretty common. The things were getting pretty racy.
When you're like, because you were seeing, not to go too crazy, but you were seeing like thongs stick up above pants in a lot of music videos.
That was
at
the
that
thing.
time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, guys, I'm like 14. What are you doing to me? I can't see this. Like,
this I mean, that
crazy.
started to trickle down to my high school. I started to see that. It's like, oh,
what is that
doing?
Man. 90s. So crazy.
I think they even had to put out a statement in my school, like, you may not have visible underwear.
No visible underwear or slap bracelets. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Slap bracelets. Yeah. And there was a thing too with, at least in my school, I think there was a thing with
Tamagotchis.
No, they had to ban Pokemon cards.
Oh yeah. They still ban Pokemon cards. My daughter came home. Dude, my daughter came home with one, and I know they're banned. And like some kid had given her like a shiny Pokemon card, and it's all beat up. Like I'm not too stressed about it, but I'm like, this is contraband. What are you doing?
This is contraband.
And she's just like, Ethan gave it to me, and I'm like, you give that back to Ethan.
Give it back.
What are you talking about? This can't happen.
You don't know what this is worth.
No, I can't even send you to school with this, because if the teacher sees you giving this to Ethan, you could get in trouble. So now I've just got this shiny Pokemon card sitting here on my desk, and from Ethan, I don't know what to do with that thing. But like, it's still a thing, dude. I remember Pokemon cards getting banned, and
that's
like
crazy that
you
that's
still
a
can't
thing.
have them. Still can't have them.
Well, we've gone from thongs to Pokemon, and now
without talking about Cisco, by the way. We didn't talk about Cisco once about the thongs.
That's true. We'll, I'm sure we'll get there at some point, some other time. All right, we have got we had a chock full side A. We'll try to get through our side B here, and we'll flip it over and go over our hopes and dreams for 2022. And we're back on side B of our 15th episode of Retro Groove. We're looking ahead to the future, and with optimism, because we have to.
We have to be.
There's no other choice at this point. Yeah. I mean, the morale's got to come up. So there's a number of things coming out album-wise relatively soon, and then there's still, despite the Omicron threat, we've seen some cancellations here and there, but live music doesn't seem to be slowing down all that much.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of artists that have this like pent up need and want to get out there, and understandably so. That's their livelihood, and that's what they're used to. And I think you're going to see a lot of big tours. I mean, they're already being announced, and there's going to be more to come. But yeah, I mean, Bon Jovi, I expect Chili Peppers, if it hasn't already been announced. I would guess Chili Peppers. I'm sure Pearl Jam wants to get out there. U2, like these bands have been sitting on the sidelines. I think we said earlier, like, these artists have had some time now to kind of cook up a plan. Things keep changing, obviously, but I think a lot of folks are going to be trying to go full steam ahead and break out of this cycle of kind of Zoom live stream, whatever, and actually get up on a stage in front of some fans.
Yeah. And, I've seen most of these announcements when I go and, look at what ticket prices are and where they're coming near me. Most of them that I don't think I've seen one that doesn't require some kind of either vaccination proof or a negative COVID test in a very short window of time. Like I saw one or two that I think you had to prove a negative COVID test within the past like 24 hours. So they're pretty strict from what I've seen anyway, which is completely understandable. It's good. The venue doesn't want to be liable for causing a super spreader event or anything like that. And, there's definitely things you can do to mitigate that, outdoors being one of them. And I've seen not music shows, but I've seen, like, for example, comedy shows where it's different tables and the tables are distanced, but you have to like buy the whole table. So like I wanted to see Dave Chappelle when he came through, but it was like, oh, you have to buy the whole table, and tickets are like, they were like $200 or $300. So it's like, I might be able to find 2 or 3 friends to go with me, but do they want to pay the $200 or $300 ticket price? So it's a lot. There's a lot of different ways around it, I think, and we're more knowledgeable now and smarter about it now that, we're not just shutting everything down like we did a couple years ago, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. And so we've talked about the economics of going to see a show as opposed to going to see a festival. And I can see the festival crowds, they're, in certain areas at least, are ripping to come back, and the companies want to do it, and the announcements are starting to trickle out. There is a lot of speculation with some of this stuff, and I think the earlier part of festival season, that April, May, is a little dicier than your August or September lineups.
Right.
We haven't seen the Lollapaloozas or any of those come out just yet. But Bonnaroo just announced, and Bonnaroo's June, and it's outdoors, and it's in Tennessee, so there's reasons to be positive there. And what's fun is when you look at a festival lineup, you can sort of see the tea leaves for who might have a project and that's why they're doing it, or who might have some sort of tour that they're pairing this with, or who's just looking for a payday. But if you look at festival lineups around the country, you will often see names that pop up multiple times, and it gives you a nice little inclination. So if you see someone performing at Bonnaroo, but you're based in California, then you can think, well, maybe they're going to play Outside Lands or Bottle Rock or some other music festival that's a little closer to me. And the Bonnaroo lineup is pretty neat. I mean, it's everything from like your Roddy Ricch, Machine Gun Kelly, like the current hip hop crowd, but you've got Stevie Nicks, you've got Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, you have Tool playing, Herbie Hancock. I mean, Bonnaroo always tries to hit a nice wide swath of people and audiences, but I mean, The Bonnaroo,
and that
Bonnaroo
seems to
lineup-
be the trend. We've been
Yeah.
we've talked about that where it's been trending that way. I mean, we even had
They need to. Yeah.
so I think that's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always going to be your metal festivals and targeted stuff like that, but the big ones are really reaching far and wide, and I like it. I think it's good. I think it's forward thinking.
So as you mentioned that, there's some projects that we know about. It's still early in the year, so we can also kind of hope or speculate on other artists that have maybe been a little quiet or have said that they're in the studios right now. But what we kind of want to do here is just look at some things that we're hopeful for in 2022. I don't think that we can sit here and say that, be predictive in what our favorite albums are going to be for this year. It's not as cut and dry as that when you get into releases, but you can kind of look at this stuff and say, hey, it would be exciting if this band put out something. It'd be cool to hear from them again. And I'll go on the speculative side of things first, because there hasn't really been a ton of concrete stuff yet. But going back to what I said about the festivals, you are seeing the Smashing Pumpkins start to book some stuff this summer. They're popping up on a few things here and there. And Billy Corgan has said, and this is going to be really interesting, that he has been working on, or his vision was a double disc trilogy that he would complete. And so Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness was the first one. And then the second one was Machina and Machina 2, which weren't technically packaged together, or at least maybe they were after the fact, but I bought Machina when it came out. Machina 2 was released separately, but he views them as a double disc set of one solo project. One work. And so there's supposed to be like a finale to that, like a third act double disc that has been in the work. I think that the Smashing Pumpkins have had these like peaks and valleys in their releases.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we talked about Zwan at one point.
Yes.
I love that album. Like, I'd
great.
love some more Zwan. But the recent Smashing Pumpkin stuff has had some really cool sounds to it. So I'm here for that. And another one that follows in that same vein is Weezer. Now, Weezer has a habit, like Rivers is always in his head and always kind of working through stuff and has 10 projects cooking at any given time.
I mean, they put out 2 albums last year, right?
Well, and he said when, I think when the Black album came out, that the White album was going to come out a month later, and then it didn't. Like, they paced themselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
He tends to put out an ambitious angle, and then I think the reality of all of it, and he's a bit of a perfectionist and has a vision, and so it takes time to craft that stuff. So there's always a little bit of a give and take with Weezer. He said that he has been prepping, and they have been prepping 4 albums worth of material for this year.
Oh my God.
1 to coincide with each season. So we would see a release right around the start of each season. So we would see the first one would come in spring. So figure, what is that, March, April, we'd see the first, and then there'd be a 3 to 4 month cadence with 4 Weezer releases.
That's
I will
wild.
say that we are seeing stuff like that happen currently. Like Beach House and Johnny Marr come to mind as artists who have been putting out like EPs or like a handful of songs and then working towards collecting them as a bigger project. So it could happen. 4 albums is a lot. Like that's goes without saying. That's a lot.
A little
If he
nuts.
said 4 EPs, or four songs, or like a song and a B-side or something like that they were going to put out new music every season, I think I'd buy into it a little bit more. But 4 albums that's very ambitious.
I feel like if you could pull it off, which I mean they probably can.
Yeah.
Like, how is that going to impact the quality of the songwriting? Because, you could put out a bunch of songs, but if you took those 40 to 50 songs and really pared them down to the best of the best, you would have a stellar album. But instead, you're going to have that handful of great songs spread out over 4 albums, which is kind of sort of described Weezer in, since Pinkerton. So, or post Pinkerton.
Post Pinkerton,
I mean, obviously that's opinion, but that seems to kind of be the way that it's gone for them.
The cadence for releases for them has always been odd, where they'll disappear for a few years and then you'll get a year where you get 2 albums, or you get an album every year for 4 years or something like that, So it could happen. I would expect that we see an album this year that has stuff from all of it, or maybe even like a double disc-y kind of thing, like an extended album that has stuff that represents all 4 seasons. It would be my guess. But we'll see. There's nothing concrete yet. Is there anything on your radar at this point that you're seeing on the horizon that you're excited about?
Yeah, not a ton. I just for whatever reason, I'm typically not looking too far in the future. Like most of the ones that I am really excited about are coming out like next month.
Right.
It's especially just the way that things are now. Looking like too far past the next month or two is kind of like, what is even going to happen?
Yeah,
like,
what's life? Yeah,
is the world even going to still be here? Like, it's just a lot. But yeah, so I already talked a little bit about Kendra Morris on side A, but her release next month is definitely probably front and center on my radar. Aside from Spoon, we get the Spoon album next month as well.
Yeah.
So that is pretty high. That's just kind of been a vibe that I've been really connecting with, that whole Black Pumas, Ghost Funk Orchestra, whole sound. So that's connecting with me, and I'm definitely excited about that.
And we've heard a new song, maybe even 2 songs from Block Party, where it's been a minute since we even knew what was going on with this band. I think the last album was 2016, 2015, something like that. So
it's been a while.
There's been they've had gaps in their releases before, but this kind of felt like, does this band still exist? Like, are they still an active group? And then you hear the new music, and they seem like they are in the best form. Like it's banging, it's rocking, it sounds like Block Party, but it feels current. So I'm excited. Like that one seems like it's going to be pretty cool. I'm guessing that tickles the Atom spot, right?
For sure. No, I was a huge fan of Silent Alarm when it came out in, what was it, 04?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2004. And they kind of blew up. I really liked their sound. I still like their sound, but it really, hit me hard back then. They even had a song on Guitar Hero. Like, they got really big.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into any of their other albums after that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've been jamming the new single in the car, Traps, and oh my God. Yeah, I have to be careful because I will start driving very fast.
It does that. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, definitely excited for that. That'll be a purchase for me.
We've got Jack White on the horizon. He's going to have, it looks like, 2 albums coming out, which again, we're getting back to ambition. But Jack White, I think he's ready to deliver it. He's been working for a while. We had a song that was really heavy come out a few weeks back, and it looks like there's going to be some sort of dichotomy between the 2 of these different sounds. So we'll get one, I think it's like March, April, and then we're looking later in the year for the next one, sometime in the summer. But Jack White always delivers. I feel like I'm always left wanting with his solo stuff more so than like a Rock on Tours or a Dead Weather kind of release, but always exciting to see what that guy does, because you just really can't predict it, other than he's going to have a guitar and it's going to rock.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. And then the other one that I saw that I was like, this is probably on Adam's to-do list is The Smile, which, you know, it's half of Radiohead. It's 2/5 of Radiohead,
2/5.
right? 2/5 of Radiohead, but Nigel's involved, right? So that's why I'm like, is it
Nigel's
half then?
always involved.
So it's like 6 members of if there's 6 members of Radiohead and there's 3 involved in this. But like it doesn't sound much like Radiohead.
No,
you know, this is
not at all.
And so it was exciting for me to hear this, to hear a different side of Tom's singing. And you know, I didn't see the live stream, I guess, earlier last year. They did a fan live stream where they performed or presented a few songs from this project. I haven't really done a whole bunch of digging on it, but I'm interested to see what this manifests as. It seems like a passion project, and those can turn out very, very odd, or they can turn out like the Zwan album we just mentioned, which is gorgeous, you know?
Exactly.
So it could be a cool one to watch for sure.
I'm kind of surprised that for some reason it really wasn't on my radar. And I get like the Radiohead, I'm on like their email list and they'll send out stuff for any of the side projects. So I just must have glazed over it. But you know, since you mentioned it to me and it reminded me, oh, okay, I remember hearing about that, but I hadn't even looked into it or listened to it yet. And I've been listening to it in the car. It's really not at all what I expected. It's rocking. It's good.
We've got a few like legacy artists who have confirmed that they're coming out of the gate with new albums. So Mellencamp's album comes out in a couple of weeks, and then Bryan Adams, who is like the Canadian Bruce Springsteen. Dude, but he's got jams. Like again, I know I have like a mixed relationship with Springsteen's music. Bryan Adams, I feel like I can listen to like I listen to Huey Lewis, where it's just so good and so listenable and easy to just rock to in the car. And it seems like this is more of the same. So I'll take some new Bryan Adams jams to cruise to. That sounds like a great way to start the year off.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, are you a Jethro Tull fan? I don't think we've ever talked about them at all.
Not a huge fan, but
okay.
I'm definitely not going to change the station if it comes on I don't really listen to radio, but I'm a fan of their hits. I don't have any of their albums. Not that I wouldn't own them, but it's just not something that's super at the forefront of my mind when I'm looking through records and digging in crates and stuff.
They definitely delve into that like prog realm, obviously, and so I wasn't sure if that was something that ever kind of hit your radar much outside of that. Like I'm in the same boat, you know. I know the hits. My dad was a fan, so we definitely listened to them a bit in the car and at home. You know, Ian Anderson's a legend. He's a rock star.
Yeah.
And so they're back this year.
That's crazy.
First album, I mean, there was a Christmas album back in the early 2000s, but like first album in over 20 years, really. And so, again, I haven't really heard it. It's supposed to come out in a couple of weeks, but it'd be interesting to hear what Jethro Tull sounds like.
Yeah.
In 2022, you know, like I know what they sounded really like in the 70s.
Exactly.
So.
And they always had a really unique sound anyway, but you know, people change after 20, 30 years.
Yeah, you can say like, you know, and obviously this is a different comparison, but you can say, you know what the Stones sounded like in the 70s as opposed to like the 80s or 90s or whatever.
Right.
Like I can hear some of those things in my head when we talk about how these bands like Aerosmith or whatever have kind of changed their sound as they went through the decades. I don't know what Jethro Tull did. You know, like
I don't know what to expect.
Like, we've talked about Yes a bunch, right? Like Yes over the years, has Yes's sound changed that much, or is it fairly a consistent formula that they just kind of reinvent or perfect each time.
It's pretty consistent in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not
yes is yes.
real familiar with their like mid 80s through the 90s stuff.
Sure.
But the newer album that came out kind of surprised me last year. And it's not amazing, but it's a solid Yes album.
Yeah.
And most of those songs I could definitely, other than obviously the synthesizers have a lot more fidelity now and the production value, the production quality, but the songs themselves could vary. John Anderson sounds
he can still do it. It's
pretty
crazy.
much just like he does on those 70s
Insane.
Yes albums. It's nuts.
How is that possible? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's amazing.
We've been waiting for a while now for this next one. So as A Tribe Called Quest were recording their last album, Phife Dawg was also recording what he was framing as going to be his second ever solo album. He was in the studio kind of doing both at the same time, jumping between the two. He obviously passed away shortly after that release. Yeah. They fortunately were able to go out and perform a bunch of shows together and really kind of give the band, as sad as it is, like it was a proper send-off, like I honestly kind of wish that the Beastie Boys had been able to do the same thing, and they did stuff at the end as well, but it definitely didn't play out the same way as this did. But there's been this talk of like how much was done and what was going to come of this solo album. But it was supposed to be released, or it was rumored to be released last year. It got pushed, and it's apparently confirmed to come out this winter. It looks like February. It's called Forever. There's a song featuring Busta Rhymes and Redman. There's a bunch of other really cool features that are talked about being on this album. So he's a legend. Like that group. Each member of A Tribe Called Quest kind of stood on their own incredibly well, and I'm really hoping that this is a good cause for celebration of an MC that's not always talked about when you're talking about some of the greatest of all time, but he should be. He's definitely in that pantheon. And so and that last Tribe Called Quest album was fantastic. So I'm really hopeful that that kind of translates over to here, and that we start hearing is stuff where he was just at the top of his game and really delivers something super strong. But it'll just be excited to hear his voice. It'll just it'll be cool to hear that.
For sure.
We know. John and I talk about a lot of this, like, I don't know, like 2000s butt rock stuff in the Discord a bunch, where I definitely had my time with it, and I still have an occasional appreciation for it. I definitely don't not enjoy it anymore. Like, it's still fun to listen to Papa Roach or whatever from time to time for what it is. Of course. And so it's kind of cool that there's a new Korn album. Those guys have reinvented themselves a bunch of times. Again, a band that's been doing it since the early 90s. So to think about a band, they're a band that when you look at it, it's funny. I saw a meme going around where it was what you think Zelda looked like 20 years ago, and it was a picture, like a screenshot of A Link to the Past, and then it was what Zelda actually looked like 20 years ago, and it was Wind Waker. God. it feels, right? It's that thing of like, oh my God, 20 years actually wasn't that long ago as a frame of reference for you and I and maybe a bunch of people listening. And so Korn's early stuff doesn't feel that far off from me, but when I look at it, it's the 90s. It's like the mid 90s, and so like that band, as we've talked about, like what hip hop icons are going to sound like Jay-Z and Kanye as they're in their 50s and 60s, and what does that even look like? What's classic hip hop when you have those stars like that? I don't know what Korn looks like at this age.
Right.
It's like,
well, and particularly with that style of music, I mean, you're you're probably just destroying your vocal cords.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like, what do you sound like after
Yeah, I
30
mean-
years of screaming? You know what I mean?
Well, that was the weird thing when I went to go to that Megadeth concert, because I'd never seen them before. And like watching them, like he had his sort of like hired guns, like the current iteration of the band around him that were doing all this like running and shredding or whatever. And then he was just on stage doing his like guttural kind of sing growling, his like snarling vocals. And it works for that music. It was cool. But at the same time, like, he was just standing there, you know, like he was just post cancer, and he was an old guy. It was like right around, I think, his like 60th birthday or something. So look, I would probably go see Korn just to see what Korn's like in their 50s. You know, like band members have come and gone. There's like one guy who's back in the band and another one who's out. But the thing about Korn that hit me back in the day that still is appealing now is that they do have a distinctive sound that a lot of other bands had, but they would experiment with it. They did an album with Skrillex, you know, like they were in that rap, rock, like new metal, whatever, but they did their own version of it, kind of like Linkin Park, where it's like, all right, you've got all the other people who are doing iterations of this or who are doing maybe uninspired versions of this. And then you have the actual original purveyors of it. And so I'm interested to see that. I don't necessarily need to see like Trapped, you know, or what, like any of those kind of bands. I think I'm good. I think I'll skip the Taproot and Alien Ant Farm shows from now on, but like I you know, Korn could be cool to see what they do.
Alien Ant Farm.
Yeah. And in that hard rock vein, a band that I do love still to this day is Avenged Sevenfold. There's been a lot of talk about new music. It's been almost 6 years since the last album.
Yeah, I was going to say they've been relatively consistent, right?
Yeah, it was every like 3 or 4 years. Like it was like really a 3-year cycle for a while, and then they did this big theatrical kind of sound to their normal blend of Metallica meets Guns N' Roses. Really is where a lot of their stuff kind of lands, especially after the second album, and. It was this big grandiose thing. It was very cool sounding, and then it's been quiet. This feels like one of those things where I think that they had plans to do like a 2020 deal, and just were like, yeah, we're gonna pause it again. Wholly me speculating, but this just feels like on their cadence and where they're at as a band. You know, back to the Block Party thing. The lead singer was putting out solo albums in that gap, you know, like he put out like 4 solo albums. These guys have dabbled in other things, but it's not like they split, to my knowledge, and went off and did a bunch of other stuff and are just coming back to this. I think that there's been something as they've been crescendoing to these bigger ideas. I think there's been something cooking, and they're just now feeling like they can actually capitalize on it. So that it feels like it was a pause button because of that. And I feel the same way about Arctic Monkeys. Again, starting to delve into some real speculation here because there isn't any concrete information, but it's about time. That last album, I don't know, did you ever listen to Tranquility Base at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm a casual fan of theirs. I'm not heavy into them, but I do like them. But I thought they're pretty, like, they put out a lot of material.
They did for a while. Yeah, there was like, they really hit that kind of bluesy garage rock thing real hard for a few albums in like the late aughts, early teens. And then they kind of disappeared. Like they had some real hits, you know, they had like 2 or 3 real big hits off of AM, which was in 2013. And then they went quiet and came back a few years after that with this like Bowie kind of influenced space garage rock opera thing, where he's
I
like
liked it.
It's pretty trippy. There's some gorgeous stuff on there. It's very piano based, which was different from the garage rock guitar driven stuff that they had done before. So it put a bunch of people off because it didn't sound like an Arctic Monkeys release necessarily. But it sounds like, that was 2018. Again, they were on a pretty solid cadence of every 2 or 3 years, with the exception of that last release. And so it feels like we're 4 years now, like we should start hearing something from this band again. And because of the nature of that last album, like, I don't know where this band could go. Like, you could have that return to form, and they could do the Let's Rock, like what the Black Keys kind of did, where they go back and they just like strip it down and write some real jams and have their El Camino moment. And again, nothing against Turn Blue. Like there was hits on that too, but
it's a great album.
I feel like we could see something like that with Arctic Monkeys. I feel like they could be poised for that, but
that
Alex
seems to
could go off and do his own thing. He could do whatever.
Definitely possible. It does seem to be the trend. Like, we're seeing it with Spoon. We seem to be seeing it with Block Party, where, okay, let's just get back to, bass, drums, and guitar, and let's rock. You know what I mean? Things seemed, at least in the indie rock space, that seems to be the trend right now. And it's I love guitar driven music. It seemed like the guitar was an instrument that was going extinct for a while there, at least from a rock and roll standpoint. But
it comes back around.
It always kind of comes in and out. But I think we're seeing more bands do that, at least in this last year or two. And I like the trend myself. So I hope it continues. And speaking of which, I know, so my big kind of speculation, hopes and dreams, hanging on a prayer. Superdrag has been dropping little hints. Like, they posted a picture of the original lineup together in a studio, and everybody was like, oh, or what looked like a studio. And everybody was like, oh, what's cooking? Like, what's happening? And I thought it was just going to be, okay, maybe they're
a reissue.
Because they did that a year or so ago with Valley of Dying Stars. So I was thinking maybe they're coming in and remastering Last Call for Vitriol, which they never have made. That was never pressed on vinyl. That was, I think, only on CD. And it's a phenomenal album. I don't know why it doesn't get as much attention. But they just announced very recently, like within the past week or so, that they have been writing songs, and they have a song, I think, recorded already. So it might be a bit of a stretch to expect an album this year, but it's not out of the question, which has me really excited. It could happen for sure. I mean, it does seem like something where they've probably, if they posted it, then they probably have full intent on doing it. Whether that gets sidelined by life, logistics, and a pandemic resurgence or whatever is kind of up in the air. But it'd be interesting to see. And another one on the speculative train, just like bands that have been quiet that really had a rhythm down, and then the rhythm should have landed right in the midst of the pandemic is Arcade Fire. So they it's been a while for them, right?
Yeah, they did. They did re-release some stuff over the COVID pandemic and stuff, but it's been a little quiet. I want to say one of them had some solo stuff. It might have been Will Butler. But yeah, it was every 3 years. I mean, like talking back to 2004, you'd get new Arcade Fire every 3 years up until 2017. And so it's been 5 years now that since we've seen anything or heard anything from that band. And they were festival headliners, you know? They were...
Yes.
You put them there with Kings of Leon and Coldplay
they were huge.
as like these... like one of the rock bands that's still kind of out there and doing it and able to sell tickets. So it is odd for them to be so quiet at this point. So I would be surprised if we don't hear something from them this
and I think
year.
we'll see them, even if it's not this year, we're probably going to see them reinvent themselves again. I feel like they've done that once or twice.
I agree.
So, you know, they've definitely, I mean, you know, they have that Bowie connection and they seem to follow that same kind of semi-concept album, you know, reinvent our sound kind of thing. Very theatrical. So, hopefully we see something that would be outstanding.
Now, you're getting new Spoon music, you know.
Yep.
You might be getting new Super Drag. You know, you don't have new Radiohead per se, but you got Tom doing something. And maybe after that we get some new Radiohead. I have two artists that I am just... If at some point as we're doing this throughout the year... we get to talk about the fact that there's new music, you're going to see me super happy. I don't know if there's just anyone that just like kind of pie in the sky, you feel like, you know, it would make your year to hear something from at this point. For me, you know, Robert Smith's talked a bunch about how he has an album done, but it needs to be mixed for The Cure. I would love to hear what The Cure sounds like now. I think it's been since 2008, I want to say, since we heard anything. And I mentioned in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame episode we did that, you know, seeing them perform that year was so good, and they've performed since, and they're still fantastic.
They're solid.
I know that they can do it. You know, I know they can still do it. So I would love to see what they could do with something that they've been working on for over a decade. And then there's been a bunch of social posts. And I have conflicted feelings about it, if I'm being completely honest, about Blink-182.
Yeah.
So Blink-182, when they initially were severing, right? Like right around the untitled, self-titled album, which was a fantastic album. Also had Robert Smith from The Cure on it, by the way.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Just to bring it right around. But fantastic album where the band kind of really cemented themselves away from the fart jokes and more in like an emo pop punk like Godfathers that they kind of are. But the band shattered after that, and they came back together after that plane crash that Travis Barker and DJ AM were in, where those are the two survivors from the plane crash. I don't know if you remember this. This had to be like 2006,
yeah, no,
2007.
I remember.
And after that, they started talking again. And they made this album called Neighborhoods, which is a fantastic album. They did not do it in a studio together. They were like doing each's individual parts and sending it to each other, which has its pros and cons to it, but also kind of says like, well, why can't you be in a studio together? You know, like COVID, there's an excuse. 2008, 2009, or I think it was 2010 actually at that point. Like, I don't know about that. But so Blink-182 after Neighborhoods, as we knew it forever, officially split again. And you had two albums with Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio, who is if you were playing fantasy rock band or fantasy pop punk emo band, I guess, let's say.
Fantasy pop punk emo.
Like, if we were doing that, that's probably my team. Like, maybe you throw somebody from Saves the Day or Newfound Glory in the mix too, or maybe throw Dashboard Confessional in the background. But like, for the most part, like, if you blend those two bands together, it was a dream for me. And so I saw that lineup 3 times.
Nice.
I love both of albums that they've now done with Matt Skiba as Blink-182. But Mark Hoppus is now hopefully looks like cancer survivor.
Yeah, looks like it.
Has been battling it for a while. He's been doing it live on Twitch a bunch. He's playing video games and battling cancer on Twitch.
Nice.
And so there's been a bunch of posts where we know that he and Tom are talking again. And it seems like they're hinting that some iteration of Blink-182 will return. I genuinely think also, Adam, that did we talk about, I don't know if we talked about it on here at all, the like UFO stuff that happened where Obama, I think he went on, it wasn't Colbert, it was one of those late night shows, and like they asked him about some UFO evidence that had been released, and he's like, yeah, we don't know what those things are. There's videos of things in the sky and we don't know what they are. And like everyone was like, whoa, did he just confirm what we think he just confirmed,
Well,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't
Tom
really
DeLonge,
confirm anything, but
that's true. Yeah. And Tom DeLonge, who, that's what he's been saying all along. He's like, he started this organization and like made that his life's
deep
mission.
Into it.
Yeah, he created To the Stars and like made that his mission to like work with the government and all these organizations to like expose this and bring it out. And so you had this moment like 2 or 3 years ago where it was all over the internet that like we're talking about this now and maybe it's a real thing and oh my God. And then people were kind of looking to Tom DeLonge and were being like, man, we were kind of a jerk to that guy.
he was
like,
right
we threw
all
him under
along.
the bus as a crazy person, and like this is kind of what he's been saying. So I think that there's like he's not fighting his war as much anymore. There's a reconciliation over the health of his friend from ages ago. And so my dream is that it's a 4-piece band now, and we still have Matt in the mix, but like it's all 4 guys and they go out on the road and they do something together. That would be really freaking cool. But
that would be cool.
We'll see. So you're going to see me lose my mind if we get some information on Blink-182 this year. Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep that.
Yeah. Keep an eye on it.
My hopes
watch
and prayers for you.
Yeah,
watch the skies for sure. That's funny.
Yeah.
The only other thing that we know for sure is coming out that I wanted to mention real quick is Tears for Fears. I don't know if you've heard the new single.
Not yet, no.
But it smartly, it harkens back to that. It's got that same like 6/8 triplet rhythm from Everybody Wants to Rule the World. It doesn't necessarily sound like it, but it's just kind of like an echo of what they were doing. And I think it's really good. So I'm actually looking forward to that album as a fan of theirs. But other than the Super Drag thing, I don't have any other like big pie in the sky. It would be nice if we got some new Black Pumas material. I know they're like still touring and they're still rightfully so kind of riding on the success of that first album. And I was even like joking with the owner of my local record shop earlier this week about how many different times that album has been released in a different package or different pressing. And it's like, it's great. I'm not knocking them whatsoever. It's a fantastic album, but it's been quite a while and I'm ready for some new Black Pumas material.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. That is a band that, again, like you said, they're riding the success and rightfully so, but like, you want to kind of nudge that along with some new stuff and keep the momentum going. So I think we will. I feel very strongly that we'll hear something this year. That's an active band who knows that they need to capitalize on it.
For sure. Anything else that you're like really looking forward to? I think we hit
No, I don't
most
think
of it.
so. Yeah, it looks like this year could be really cool. Again, I think a lot of artists have spent last year working on stuff, and I hope that everything gets the oxygen it deserves this year, because it could be overload.
It has the potential to be, that's for sure, especially if after this Omicron wave we start to see much more widespread immunity and things starting to go back to some semblance of normalcy. We'll probably just get a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And it could very well be overkill, but
yeah, I think so too.
It's not necessarily a bad thing right now. It's
no, we can pick and choose then, and we just need to make sure that we're not missing stuff.
Yeah, that's the tough part, is going back and seeing what you missed.
Yeah,
I enjoyed this. It's actually hyped me up a little bit, given me some more perspective on what's on the horizon, or what could be on the horizon. I'm looking forward to it. And 2022 has got to be a good year. I don't care if I'm, quote unquote jinxing it or whatever. Like, let's just make it a good year regardless of what's happening in the world, because we know that terrible stuff is always going to be going on. And just make the best of it. Be good to people. Do what you can to put some goodness out there. And that's all we can do.
Yeah. And apparently get ready to listen to a whole bunch of Weezer. Who knows?
Oh God. Why is that a thing? They're doing like a Pokemon Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons thing, where it's like there's going to be different versions of the same album, and the super fans will buy both of them and double dip just because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but
yeah, that's right.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening to Retro Groove. We're part of the Retrologic Network. Come check out the website, retrologic.games, for social links, merchandise, community, and more. We're also on Instagram, and we have a brand new, spanking new, as of this morning, Twitter account at retrogroove_pod. Come follow us, give us a tweet, let us know what you're listening to, what you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, anything you want. It's all fair game as far as I'm concerned. Any parting words,
Sweet.
Liam?
No, I think we're good. Get ready for it, guys. It's going to be a good
ready.
year.
Get ready.